Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tech Champions. I'm your host, Daniel Beaty, CTO with AuditMax in Jacksonville, Florida. As you know, we take time each week and sit down with thought leaders and industry experts in the field of technology. We learn about their journey and their mission and get their take on the latest trends in the industry. We always have amazing guests on the show, and today is no exception. Joining us from San Jose, California is Christos Kalantzis. Hey Christos, welcome to the show.
Hi Daniel, thank you for having me.
You bet. Yeah. So Christos, you currently serve as CTO for SecurityScorecard, but I know you served in some amazing roles over the years. I know you were at Netflix for a while and Tenable. Let's start by just giving our audience a little bit of your background and your journey to this point, and maybe a little bit of the mission of SecurityScorecard.
Absolutely. My beginnings are humble. I started in tech support many moons ago. And quickly had a desire and a propensity for storing and serving data. So I worked up the ranks as a DBA, spent many years learning that craft, and eventually, joined some of those bigger companies you mentioned, like Netflix. You send it before that, and really was confronted with, the scale that modern tech and web companies face. Was completely amazed, learned really quickly how to handle that very large scale, and serve our customers and store all that data to come up with the recommendations for people to watch movies, or to make sure the site is up all the time. Eventually, I always had this desire to build product and not just be in the background storing and serving data. So I had the opportunity to do that later on in my career. First at Tenable, then at FireEye, and now here at SecurityScorecard, where I'm having a great time. Learning new skills, learning these, building product, talking to customers, and really coming up with great ideas to deliver value.
Yeah, that's great. I love to hear about how people have got to where they are now. I too got my start in tech support, or the old,
Absolutely.
the Time Life operator headset, and supported attorneys in downtown Atlanta. So I always say if you can support 1,000 attorneys, you can work for just about anybody. So. And it's a great way to learn too, because you're getting different questions all day long. So, but I do want to focus on security today, Christos, and I know that's something you're really passionate about. Talk to our audience a little bit about some of the latest trends in the security industry that you're seeing.
Well, this is early 2021. About a month ago, there was a big breach in the news. SolarWinds, the code base of SolarWinds being hacked. And those hacks and those backdoors being sent to out to their customers, and some big customers, including the federal government, FireEye, who was more in the news, and they were able to detect it. We too at SecurityScorecard analyzed the SolarWinds hack and learned that it was actually bigger than we thought. So I don't want to focus on SolarWinds itself, that particular hack, but the importance of securing your supply chain is super important. You can have a great CISO, a great InfoSec team, and they're protecting you. But if as we become a more connected world and more people are using, SaaS products, the weakest link in that chain is what's going to be your undoing, not your own attention to detail to secure the data in your own data centers. So supply chain is getting a lot of attention. It's getting a lot of attention by the current administration, the new administration. And I think you'll be seeing a lot of focus on securing the supply chain.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's always interesting to me to read about the hacks and the new ways. It feels like sometimes the hackers are more creative than the rest of us as far as how they get in. And this latest example is it's pretty interesting to me how they got into the code, and because we normally all click on that update or allow updates on most apps, we're kind of used to
Absolutely.
that. So that was a sneaky
I
way
mean,
to
and
get in
that's
there.
a best practice. Yeah, that's a best practice, right? Keep your
Yeah,
software up to date. In this particular case, it was our undoing. Keeping the software up to date is what exposed us to the hack.
right. So let's talk about this scorecard concept. Tell our audience, kind of walk us through that, and what are some of the benefits for companies and even maybe consumers?
Absolutely. We at Security Scorecard, we've come up with a way to predict a breach. And the way we do that is by collecting a lot of publicly outside information about entities, about companies. And we have found, and we've got an algorithm which we found we can predict that probability of being breached. Think of it a little bit like your FICO score, where the FICO score is a representation of the probability of paying back a note, of a debtor paying back their note.
Hmm.
At Security Scorecard, our score is all about the probability of you being breached. And it's an A or an F. And we have white papers out there and studies that show that if you're an F, you're 7.7 times more likely to be breached than if you've got a score of an A.
Oh wow! And so, what are some of the criteria or things you're looking at? Like, what goes into the score? I guess.
Absolutely. So we scan the internet. We look at open ports. We compare those open ports, versions of software. We compare those to CVE databases. We look at email configuration. How likely are you to be phished or someone to use your domain in a phishing attack? There's hundreds of signals that we collect, and we put a weight to those signals. And then that goes to our algorithm. And what comes out on the other side is that score, which is a representation of your cybersecurity posture. It's easy to digest. It being a score means it's easy to digest. And people running complex vendor risk management programs can use that easily to consume score to kind of start building and inferring the quality of the infosec program of a particular vendor, or they can use it even to analyze their own security and keep themselves safe.
Okay, great. And so, most of your customer engagements, are those kind of one-time audits, or are they ongoing, where they want to keep track of that over time?
That's a great question. Actually, no, the product is updating your score on a daily basis. We're
Oh wow.
constantly running the internet. We've got 1.5 million scorecards, entities scored. We're aiming to expand that to 20 million by the end of 2021. Our idea is to provide a score for every company in the world, and continuously monitor, continuously score them, and provide the most accurate representation of their cyber posture, the most accurate real-time representation of their cyber posture.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love the concept there. I think that's fantastic, and it's something that we're all pretty familiar with as well. Based on credit scores and the other things you mentioned. So I think it's a good concept. So, and I know you're a big data guy. We hear a lot about big data these days. The big data by itself is great, I suppose, but I mean, you've got to build on top of big data, right? So things like analytics and some things like that. So how are talk to our audience a little bit about how companies are using big data and then analytics to improve the company and affect the bottom line.
Um, I mean, you're really hitting close to my heart there, Daniel. I am a big data guy. I am a data person. As I mentioned earlier, I started my career as a DBA and in business intelligence and data warehouses. Look, data data is super important. The more data you have about your interactions, your customers, your own product, the better decisions you can make. Um, think of it this way: if if you could detect and kind of analyze and figure out a pattern of the profile of a customer when they churn, then you can start predicting what customers may churn, and take the appropriate steps to address that, to keep that churn low. Now that's just one example, obviously. If we take the Netflix example, which I spent quite a bit of time at, well, they're collecting data to be able to make great recommendations to you. That list of recommended movies for you or recommended shows for you, that's different for every user. And the way they develop that list is by analyzing behavior, looking at what you watch, do you completely watch it, etc. And all that behavior is data, which is analyzed and turned into something useful for their end user.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's a good concept, and I know my family enjoys that, the recommended list. We use that quite a bit instead of searching elsewhere. So that's great. So we're going to wrap things up. Christos, you've done a great job today. I really appreciate it. But I do want to ask you one final question we ask of all our guests, since we're called Tech Champions. Can you give me one characteristic you think it takes to become a tech champion?
If we look at tech as an amplifier to everything we do, whether it's a business process or just amplifying humans and becoming more efficient at what we do, a tech champion for me is somebody who's got an uncanny ability to identify an opportunity and then to use technology, in our case, information technology, to be able to solve that problem efficiently, effectively, and at scale.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's great. And I did want to give you a chance to offer your email address or some contact information. I'm sure you're on LinkedIn, but if people want to reach out and find more about Security Scorecard or just pick your brain on big data stuff, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at Chris Kalan. That's ChrisKalan. I'm on LinkedIn. When they were doing vanity URLs, I got in early, so you can just put in Christos Kalantzis and it'll find me.
Okay, great. And thank you so much for being on the show, Christos. And thank you to our audience. I'm your host, Daniel Beaty, and we'll see you next time on Tech Champions.